Well, it's a Thursday. That means it's time for Explain and Verify. SABC News reporter Samkele Maseko is with us in studio as always. And Samkele, today you're focusing on what is sadly something that we have to grapple with in the country: violence in politics, political killings.
Indeed, Tembegile, very good evening to our listeners and viewers. Yet we are yet revisiting the deadly fault lines of South African politics, where public office can be a death sentence and justice remains elusive for many. We take a closer look at the murder of former ANC Youth League Secretary General Sindiso Magaqa, who was brutally gunned down outside of his home in Mzimkhulu, where he was ambushed in KwaZulu-Natal in July 2017 after probing alleged corruption around 37 million rands tender. He died weeks later, reported from complications related to his injuries. For years, his case sat in limbo, but now there is a major breakthrough within this specific case of Sindiso Magaqa. This is after Sibusiso Ngengwa pleaded guilty to all charges against him, including murder, conspiracy to murder, and ammunition and malicious damage to property. One of the alleged hitmen, Sibusiso Ngengwa, has pleaded guilty to all of his charges related to Sindiso's assassination. Ngengwa is currently serving 95 years in prison for unrelated robbery crimes and convictions, and will be sentenced for Magaqa's murder on the 30th of June at the Pietermaritzburg High Court. And this is a case that has left his family very much angered. Ngengwa was charged alongside three others, Sibonelo Mieza, Mbulelo Mpofana, and Mlungisi Ngalane, for conspiracy to murder, attempted murder, illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, and malicious damage to property. But in a twist, Ngalane has been ruled mentally unfit to stand trial following 2 psychiatric evaluations. He is now a patient at the 4th Napier Hospital in Pietermaritzburg. So, does this long overdue guilty plea bring closure, or it's just a surface of something deeper? To understand that, we will go back to the Morane Commission, the inquiry established in 2016 to probe political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. If you look at that particular Tembegile, the Morane Commission findings, killings concentrated at local government level. If you look at these political killings concentrated at local government level, you look at the likes of Mhlongo, who was gunned down in Pietermaritzburg at the Moses Mabhida region. You go to the likes of the late former regional secretary of the ANC in eThekwini. You go to the likes of Jimmy Mushala in Mpumalanga, where he was unraveling corruption involving the building of the Mbombela Stadium as well, gunned down. You look at to the various killings that have taken place. For instance, if you look at Msawenkosi Mkhunu Kashana in the Moses Mabhida region of Pietermaritzburg around Edendale as well, he was gunned down. There have been a number of killings as well if you go towards Umkambatini area of that Moses Mabhida, the greater Kumgungundlovu district municipality. You go to Wanongoma as well in the various municipalities led by the IFP. There have been political killings as well. So it does look definitely that it cuts across political lines, killings that are concentrated at a local government level. Even a DA councillor was killed in KwaZulu-Natal as well, linked to internal political factional battles and corrupt tenders. Directly linkage to the Sindiso Magaqa case that we are currently evaluating, and that is currently within the courts within the country. Law enforcement crippled by poor coordination, fear, and political interference, coupled with law enforcement agencies being in cahoots with the masterminds of political killings. For instance, if you look at the political killings task team that has just been dismantled by the Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, it did find that there is some nefarious doings by that particular political killings team, just linkages to the Sindiso Magaqa case. A slush fund of crime intelligence is alleged to have been used in procuring the vehicles that ultimately were used and the ammunition in the murder of Sindiso Magaqa. Witnesses often intimidated or killed before testifying. Tembegile.
So when you look at this then, Samkele, how well, we understand the problem, right, and its roots. How well has the country done in responding to that when you consider that even people who raise the alarm, as you were just telling us, are either intimidated or themselves killed?
For instance, if you look at some of the political cases that have been investigated in KwaZulu-Natal, witnesses have disappeared, witnesses have been killed, but also there is a general corroboration between the murderers, those who procured the inkabis, and businesses who are often the ones providing the resources in order to pay these particular inkabis. You look at the recordings that have been leaked of the Sindiso Magaqa case and how a certain municipal official who was the municipal manager in Umzimkulu was in cahoots, collaborating, discussing with Izinkabi, even giving amounts of money that would be paid to pull out this particular job. But this case of Sindiso Magaqa is tragically not unique. There are many instances of this particular case. We are going to be joined now by Mary Haas, who is a researcher looking into political killings very closely in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. A very good evening to you. Looking at this particular case of Sindiso Magaqa and the revelations that have come out of it, what do you make of Sibusiso Ngwenga's revelations, where you've got for the very first time on record Eninkabi admitting to have participated in political killings, to have his services have been procured by a politician allegedly, and also by allegedly a former municipal manager, and who was then a sitting municipal manager at the time within that municipality where Magaqa was a councillor?
Okay, let me go back to this. I need to stress that the initial breakthroughs were made by the provincial team. They arrested the alleged hitmen. The man who's now confessed has wanted to plead guilty, and initially the prosecutor, KZN prosecutor, agreed. What then happened was that the political killings team was established. They came in, they brought another prosecutor in, and let's call him just the hitman, was thwarted in his attempts to plead guilty and make a confession. He was opposed by the prosecution that took over, and this is the subject of a letter I've just sent off to the NDPP Batoy, because I now have more than enough evidence to show that the political killings task team is covering up the politicians. Okay, so what then happened was, when the new prosecution took over, the first thing, one of the early things they did was to actually release 3 of the others who were police on bail. And I and others objected at the time because it was a very dangerous decision. And now I have other cases which I've just reported to Batoy about good police deliberately being framed. In fact, one of the police that was part of the original arrest of these hitmen, who was in the provincial team, Dlamini, Bongi Nkosi Dlamini, who has an excellence award, was actually maliciously prosecuted for 5 years without bail, still in prison, because he refused to take illegal instructions from the task team. Okay. Now, with the original team, the people were arrested. One of the people arrested was Ndobe. Now, I can tell you from the information we had at the time, I was working closely with the networks that were following the case, that Ndobe was a prime suspect. He and Skosana and another were released by the task team, and he died shortly afterwards. Dead men tell their tales, because we have information that this was linked to very high levels within the ANC and KZN. And as I said, they released these police who had bad reputations before they were arrested on bail. Now, it's dragged on for years. The hitman wanted to confess, he wasn't given the chance. And his lawyers were letting him down. They seem to be intimidated by the prosecution. The prosecution is the subject of a letter I've just sent off to Shamila Batoy demanding an inquiry into the prosecution, the removal of the dockets.
Is the political killings...
Now, the hitman then found a good lawyer who helped with the confession. So that's where we are at the moment.
Is the political killings task force that has now been dismantled by the minister complicit and is covering up many of these political killings in the province of KwaZulu-Natal across these political parties, but in the main, that of the erstwhile governing party of that province?
Yeah, without a doubt they are. I mean, every single case, you know, I sent an official complaint to the parliamentary committee over 6 months ago. They didn't respond. I said, I want an inquiry into the political task team. The minister, to whom it had been copied, obviously did his own follow-up and the team was dismantled. They've continued to operate. I can't tell you what they've cost the taxpayers in terms of money, but I mean, I can send you what I've just sent off to Advocate Batoy because it's gone to Parliament. I want an inquiry. I want this prosecutor removed. The prosecutor is also under investigation in Gauteng. And he came here and his hand is evident everywhere. And in all these cases, I'll just give you one example. A couple of years ago more, some police, decent, good police in Umkomaas, arrested men at a roadblock they were running, armed with AK-47s, obviously on their way to commit a hit. And then what happened is that they booked it all in, and soon after that, the task team came in and arrested them on trumped-up charges. Okay, they've been in prison without bail for 2.5 years. The state has finished its case. There isn't a shred of evidence against them. But what happened is they weren't called, they weren't subpoenaed to give evidence they weren't subpoenaed to give evidence for the bail hearing of the hitmen they'd arrested. The hitmen were let out. The hitmen are linked to a taxi boss who's very close to a very senior politician. So there you have it.
Looking at these particular revelations, do you foresee this affidavit and testimony by Sindiso Ngcwenga, this confession, leading to the arrest of Mr. Skosana, the municipal manager, if he's still alive, and ultimately the other individual who is now complicit, who was a conduit of these particular funds, where he took the bags, gave them to Izinkabis, met Mr. Ndobe on a number of occasions, who is currently in the employ of the eThekwini municipality, who used to work at the Umhlatuze municipality as a communications officer, who also shares a name with a surname with Mr. Mlu Ngalane.
Look, I can't forecast that. So much depends. What I do know, and I think it's very important to tell you this, that the Magaqa family, you know, since this case started, for 7 years, elderly, frail Mrs. Magaqa has been sitting in court and seeing no progress whatsoever. And the family are very, very grateful to the hitman for telling them the whole story, which confirms what a number of us knew. Now, for years it's been known that the money for this was provided by crime intelligence. But that doesn't tell us enough, because crime intelligence have been controlled by politicians. What we want to know is which politicians gave the order to crime intelligence to actually provide that money. Okay. But I don't know whether further convictions will come. I know the hitman himself, sorry, it's just my slang for him. His name is known, and he himself was under threat. We worried about his safety. I think there were approaches to the prison to make sure he was safe, because his co-accused did not want him to confess. So that suggests that the confession may lead to more revelations. I don't know, but I do want to emphasize that the family, the Magaqa family, is very grateful for his having told them the story. I mean, people want justice, and I mean, my biggest problem is getting justice for people. Hardly any of them get it. And I'm now, in this letter I've just sent to Batoy, accusing the NDPP of complicity in defeating the ends of justice, because I've given them now case after case in which this task team has set out to defeat the ends of justice, including, the fact that this case dragged on is the fault of the prosecution. They deliberately draw cases out. So it's another reason we're particularly grateful to the man who finally made the confession. We're also very grateful to the lawyers, the advocate who helped him, because all the other lawyers that let him down is a serious problem. All these people that are arrested by the task team. Another one is Mr. Mzindli, a senior road traffic officer. He was arrested after he gave information to the police about the killing of another uncorruptible politician, the speaker, Wandile Mkhize, the speaker on the lower South Coast. He was killed by a wealthy tenderpreneur because he didn't go along with corruption. Mzindli gave this information. Mzindli was persecuted. He spent 5 years without bail. There were attempts to poison him in prison, but some other poor inmate ate his food and died on the way to hospital. And Mzindli was finally released. He was let down all this time, 5 years. And Mzindli was released last month in a section, I've forgotten what it is, 174, I think, which is actually, there's absolutely no evidence against him. Imagine this, and the charges were kind of, he's defeated the ends of justice or he's fraud. They're not allowed to investigate fraud. The task team have taken cases they do not have the mandate to investigate. Right now, they brought cases against municipal officials, even the mayor at Nongoma, for fraud. They have absolutely no mandate to do that. It's part of the Hawks mandate, EPCI. So they're breaking the law. One Hawks member said to me, these arrests are illegal, They should, so there's all these municipal officials. It's a political game in Nongoma, because when these Nongoma officials appeared in court, Minister Tleli was there, the provincial commissioner was there, and I think General Kumalo from the Hawks was there, I'm not sure. But the same prosecutor was involved. So you could see right across the board, this political killings team, and which is disobeying ministerial instructions.
Mary, thank you very much Mary, sorry to interrupt you there. You will definitely have, someone will definitely give you a contact number for you to send us through that particular document you've sent through to the National Director of Public Prosecutions. We will definitely engage with you in the coming weeks as the story unravels and as more information comes out on the assassination of Sindiso Jethro Magaqa. Just to go to our very next slide, Tembegile, our last two slides, to look into this array of political killings, to show that it is not only within one political formation. Across the country, in KwaZulu-Natal, in Mpumalanga and other provinces, political killings between 2010 and June 2025. African National Congress, ANC, members killed 103. That is a percent of 60.95. Roughly rounded, 61% of ANC councillors killed between 2010 going to 2025. NFP, 21 councillors basically killed, or members of the party. That is 11.24%. You go to the IFP, Inkatha Freedom Party, 19 members. That is a percentage of 11.24%. Then there's the Economic Freedom Fighters, 10 members killed. That is 5.92%. Then you go to the Democratic Alliance, 4. That is a percentage of 2.3%. Then the new kid in political electoral politics, South African Communist Party, had 2 members killed. That is 1.1, rounded off 1.2%. Tembegile, going to ACDP, Ahang, Congress of the People, Land Party, MKP, new kid in the block, just 18 months old. 3 of its members have already been killed. Then there are 2 unknown. Then political killings between 2010 and going to 2025, total 169. 11 parties and 1 unknown. Total 169 members of political parties have been killed. Recorded political killings in 6 months before the election date: 2016, 11, 2019, 6, 2021, 6, 2024, 7. And as we go towards the 2020 26 local government elections. It's not yet sure what's going to happen, knowing that the pie is shrinking, the dominance of the ANC is shrinking. You've got other political parties rising from the ashes, like the Inkatha Freedom Party in KwaZulu-Natal, and others being born, like the MK Party, sweeping through the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Political killings prevalent in KwaZulu-Natal and also Mpumalanga. So those particular provinces have to be closely watched, but also we've seen these killings also moving to other parts of the country, particularly in Gauteng. You've seen how the IFP Deputy Chief Whip, Mr. Stole, even though it's said it's not politically related, was gunned down in Gauteng. That will ultimately tell you that South African law enforcement agencies, and in particular the Minister of Police and the Police Commissioner, Fani Musamula, are going to have their hands cut out for them in trying to nip this particular scourge in the bud. Noting that Minister Senzo Mchunu has scrapped the political killings task team in KwaZulu-Natal.
Samgila Maseko with Explain and Verify. We'll leave it there for now. I will be back with much more, well, a wrap of the last few stories that we can get through before we come to the end of the full view. Stay with us.